We're certainly navigating some turbulent waters these days, aren't we? It feels like every headline brings in complexity, a fresh challenge. And it often leaves you pondering, what does it truly take to lead effectively when the ground beneath you feels, well, anything but stable? Well, that's precisely the question we're diving into today. We're guided by one of America's most celebrated historians, Doris Kearns Goodwin, to her seminal work, Leadership in Turbulent Times. Goodwin's genius isn't just recounting history, it's meticulously dissecting the lives of four pivotal American presidents. We're talking Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and Lyndon B. Johnson. She looks at how they not only weathered profound crises, but were fundamentally shaped, even strengthened by them.
That's exactly right. Our mission today is really to extract the most potent nuggets of knowledge and maybe some surprising insights from Goodwin's extensive research. We'll explore how these leaders emerged, as she puts it, better fitted to confront the contours and dilemmas of their times. They shared a fierce ambition and a deep-seated resilience. It's a compelling look at that often unseen intersection of, deeply personal trials and these monumental national ones.
So prepare yourselves, because we're embarking on a fascinating journey. We'll explore Lincoln's transformative leadership, Theodore Roosevelt's crisis management, then Franklin Roosevelt's spirit of turnaround, and Lyndon Johnson's powerful visionary drive. And along the way, we'll highlight the unique personal crucibles, those really intense, defining moments that forged each man. Okay, let's begin with Abraham Lincoln. His political journey started with such humility, didn't it? Declaring his run for the Illinois state legislature, stating simply, "I am young and unknown to many of you." What Goodwin reveals about his early self-education is, well, truly remarkable.
It really is. This was a man who, lacking paper, would read by charcoal, practice letters in dust and sand. He quickly became known as the best penman in the neighborhood. And even as a boy, Goodwin notes, he emerged as a guide and leader to his schoolmates, already showing that innate capacity.
But Goodwin also digs into the contrast, right, between that intellectual promise and his pretty profound personal struggles.
Absolutely. One of the most striking aspects is that contrast. His relationship with his father, for instance, was incredibly fraught. His father actively discouraged his reading, even destroyed his books, whipped him for it, saw it as laziness, essentially.
Oh.
Yeah. And this challenging upbringing contributed to this pervasive melancholy. His junior law partner observed it dripped from him as he walked. Just imagine.
Yet despite that emotional burden.
Right. Despite that, Lincoln consistently showed this early, enduring willingness to acknowledge his own errors, to learn from mistakes. He famously pledged to renounce erroneous opinions if they were proven wrong. That capacity for self-reflection, for growth, Goodwin argues it was absolutely critical.
And then we come to a moment as monumental as the Emancipation Proclamation. Goodwin makes it clear this wasn't a sudden, impulsive decision for Lincoln, was it?
Not at all. She details how he deliberately created time and space to think, even with the White House constantly full of people. He needed that space.
So what was happening behind the scenes? What did Goodwin find so compelling there?
Well, Goodwin shows us how Lincoln really wrestled deeply with the implications, issuing the weapon of emancipation as a unilateral military decree. He worried about that. He genuinely feared it could look like the action of a dictator, a Caesar or Napoleon. That wasn't the image he wanted.
And the cabinet debates were intense.
Oh, incredibly intense. They revealed the immense pressure he was under. Secretary of State Seward, for example. Brilliant guy, but challenging. He argued that issuing it right after Union military reversals would make it seem like our last shriek on the retreat. Desperation, basically.
And Lincoln's reaction.
That's the key part. With characteristic humility, he admitted he'd entirely overlooked that crucial timing aspect. He listened, and then he made that pivotal decision. Delay the announcement until a Union victory could provide a stronger context. Show strength, not desperation.
That really speaks volumes about his leadership style.
It really does. And this moment illustrates a profound insight from Goodwin's book. Great leaders cultivate the humility to not just invite, but genuinely integrate powerful dissenting opinions. It shows that strategic timing, informed by diverse perspectives, can elevate a good idea into a powerful, successful action. It raises the question, doesn't it? How many leaders today truly listen like that?
So, looking at Lincoln's overall style through Goodwin's lens, what specific qualities does she emphasize as really distinguishing him, especially under that kind of pressure?
Goodwin consistently points to his profound emotional intelligence. That was paramount. His empathy, his humility, consistency, self-awareness, generosity of spirit. These were his defining traits. He insisted on mutual respect within his cabinet. He welcomed vigorous arguments, sure, but explicitly forbade public attacks among his team. He warned it would be a wrong to me, and much worse, a wrong to the country. That's powerful.
And that famous habit of writing hot letters.
Ah, yes. Fascinating, isn't it? Almost therapeutic. He'd write these angry letters to blow off steam, but then famously noted on them, never sent and never signed. Incredible self-discipline, emotional regulation.
And that fostered trust.
Deep trust, especially among the soldiers. They affectionately called him Father Abraham, carried his picture into battle. They felt he genuinely cared for them. And that deep connection, Goodwin argues, allowed him to elevate the war's purpose beyond just preserving the Union. He turned it into a moral cause, a fundamental shift that really galvanized the nation.
Okay, let's pivot now. From Lincoln to Theodore Roosevelt, a leader whose early life was marked by, well, extreme physical fragility, suffering terrifying, debilitating attacks of bronchial asthma as a child. Yet he was privileged access to books, and critically, a father who pushed him, urged him to make his body.
Indeed. Goodwin highlights how those physical struggles shaped him, but his true crucible moment, the real turning point, arrived on a single devastating day in 1884. In just a tragic twist of fate, both his young wife and his mother died in the same house, hours apart.
Unimaginable.
Right. He wrote in his diary that day, "The light has gone out of my life." And this profound loss propelled him to escape, basically. He went out to the Badlands of the Dakotas, and that period became one of intense self-transformation. He constantly forced himself to do the difficult or even dangerous thing. He consciously cultivated courage, saw it as a matter of habit.
Even breaking ribs, setting an example as a ranch owner, Goodwin mentioned.
Exactly. The period, as Goodwin meticulously details in Leadership, In Turbulent Times, truly foreshadowed his proactive, decisive approach to crisis.
And that approach was definitely put to the test during the 1902 anthracite coal strike. Winter was coming fast, people were suffering nationwide, and both the powerful coal operators and the desperate miners were just locked in this intractable deadlock. What was Roosevelt's unique maneuver here?
Well, Goodwin illustrates his proactive, bold intervention. He really defied past presidential precedents. He famously rejected what he called the narrowly legalistic view of presidential power. He believed fundamentally that the president was the servant of the people.
So he couldn't just stand by.
Absolutely not. Refused to stand committed while the nation froze. He immediately brought in an impartial expert, Commissioner Carroll D. Wright, who really understood the deep suspicion between capital and labor. But when the coal operators showed, frankly, shocking insolence in a meeting, even suggesting Roosevelt was dealing with a set of outlaws, TRR.
Well, he admitted later he wanted to chuck him out of the window.
But he didn't.
No. He kept his temper remarkably in check. And that moment shows how he channeled that intense resolve into strategic action, not just raw emotion. So it sounds like he wielded more than just his direct authority. How did he strategically use public opinion? Leverage his power?
That's a crucial point Goodwin makes. He masterfully used public opinion as a powerful weapon. He strategically released that Wright report, basically laid the unvarnished facts and the operator's stubbornness before the public. Let the people see.
Creating pressure.
Exactly. Allowed public sentiment to build overwhelmingly, creating the political space he needed to act. But the ultimate big stick, as Goodwin describes it, that came from his audacious secret plan.
The troop invasion.
10,000 army troops. The plan was to organize an invasion of the coal fields, not to fight, but to dispossess the operators and run the mines himself to get people coal. He flatly declared, "I am commander-in-chief of the army. I will give the people coal." Powerful stuff.
But it was the threat that worked.
Precisely. Goodwin highlights this beautifully. The threat of this intervention, credible, decisive, conveyed quietly through his Secretary of War, Elihu Root, to the influential financier, J.P. Morgan, that ultimately broke the deadlock, led to a peaceful resolution.
So it wasn't just brute force.
No, it was masterful, the strategic use of implied power. Roosevelt understood that sometimes the most effective big stick is the credible threat of decisive action, not the action itself. It's about leveraging perceived resolve, and demonstrating leadership as a servant of the people.
All right, let's turn now to Franklin D. Roosevelt. Goodwin describes him as maybe the latest bloomer among these leaders. Ambition largely concealed early on, yet he possessed what she calls a first-class temperament, and this natural, almost unbreakable optimism.
Yeah, and a fascinating aspect Goodwin explores is his really unique learning style. Unlike many leaders, he absorbed immense information, not primarily by, reading in solitude. He learned by listening intently, engaging in conversation. His mother recalled him sprawled on the floor with stamps, yet quoting verbatim what she'd been reading aloud in another room.
Wow.
And his speechwriter, Sam Rosenman, observed something similar. He could interrupt and ask questions. It was easy for him to get the gist right away. That ability to synthesize through dynamic conversation was a real advantage.
And of course, the turning point, his ultimate crucible moment. The devastating polio diagnosis at age 39 left him permanently paralyzed. This could have ended his political dreams right there. But Goodwin argues it fundamentally transformed him. How does she connect that personal tragedy to his leadership?
Goodwin argues his irrepressible optimism was truly the keystone. It carried him through that profound ordeal. He never lost conviction he'd fully recover, even if, well, reality suggested otherwise. And his time at Warm Springs, Georgia, initially for physical recovery, unexpectedly led to something deeper. A more profound level of humility, she writes, and a greater concern for the pain and suffering of others. Empathy.
Which proved vital later.
Absolutely vital. And he also assembled this unorthodox, fiercely loyal, and intimate team around him. People like Eleanor, Louis Howe, Missy Lehand. Crucially, they were not a yes-man woman. They provided him a vital range of opinions, weren't afraid to challenge him. That whole period, Goodwin details meticulously, transformed him. And it does raise an important question for us, doesn't it? How much does that kind of profound personal adversity prepare a leader for national crisis?
And we saw that preparation vividly demonstrated in the famous 100 days, those first 3 months, and his immediate response to the banking crisis in 33. The country was in sheer panic.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Banks were collapsing like a whole house of cards across the nation. Panic everywhere. Roosevelt immediately prioritized restoring public confidence. He delivered that famous inaugural address with what Goodwin calls a complete exultation, despite his physical challenges, a real contrast to the national mood.
And his cabinet was ready for action.
Chosen specifically for their bias for action, they quickly found this obscure 1917 precedent to declare a 4-day national bank holiday, gave everyone breathing room. Then his very first fireside chat, using the radio, speaking directly to the American people, he used his calm, modulated voice to explain complex financial issues simply, reassuring people it was actually safer to keep your money in a reopened bank than under the mattress.
No.
Genius, really.
Building that connection.
Yeah, exactly. He fostered this profound reciprocal connection with the people, valued flexibility, famously acknowledged, if it doesn't work out, we can modify it as we go along. That willingness to adapt, to iterate, to communicate directly and reassure the American people. Goodwin shows how foundational that was to turning around the nation's despair, a key insight from the book.
Finally, let's turn to Lyndon B. Johnson, a figure driven by, well, fierce ambition, yet, interestingly, plagued by a sense of academic inferiority. But Goodwin highlights a truly pivotal experience that shaped him early on. His year as principal of a Mexican-American elementary school in Catilla, Texas.
Right, and what's deeply illuminating there, according to Goodwin, is how that experience really transformed his ambition. It wasn't just about him anymore. He channeled his indefatigable energy, ability to persuade, willingness to fight for what he wanted directly into concrete actions, to enlarge opportunities for his students. It was, as Goodwin emphasizes in the book, a display of a different kind of leadership, one based on empathy and generosity he had never exercised before. Really foundational.
So that personal connection to improving lives, not just political gain.
Precisely. That would profoundly resurface later in his career, shaping his grander vision for the Great Society.
And speaking of shaping him, Johnson, too, faced profound crucibles. Goodwin details his painful loss in the 1948 Senate election. He felt that deeply, like a repudiation of his deepest self. And then later, his 1955 heart attack. How did these moments instill that profound sense of urgency Goodwin describes?
Well, when Kennedy was assassinated, Johnson knew immediately he had to fill this brutally sudden vacuum of leadership. There was no time to waste. Goodwin points out his immediate aim was to turn the dead man's program into a martyr's cause, especially the stalled civil rights bill. That became paramount.
And his start was dramatic.
Absolutely crucial. Simplifying the agenda immediately, civil rights and a tax cut, focus, and then leveraging his legendary mastery of the Senate. Goodwin details how he knew every senator's strengths and vulnerabilities, knew the emotion most controlling them. That allowed him to navigate that incredibly complex legislative maze.
Including the longest filibuster in Senate history.
Exactly. It was that intimate understanding of political dynamics, combined with this newfound moral urgency fueled by his own experiences and the historical moment, that defined his actions.
So how did this personal transformation and his, frankly, unparalleled political skill coalesce into the visionary leadership he showed with the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965?
That's the vital question, isn't it? How did he push such historically divisive legislation through? Goodwin reveals how he masterfully leveraged the moral force of the civil rights movement itself alongside his incredibly skillful use of the bully pulpit, the president's powerful platform to advocate and persuade.
He wasn't afraid to challenge people directly.
Not at all. He directly challenged Republicans. Be the party of Lincoln or you ain't by God, put up or shut up. Direct. He even appealed to Senator Dirksen's vanity, promising him, 200 years from now, there'll be only two people they'll remember from the state of Illinois, Abraham Lincoln and Everett Dirksen, whatever it took.
And the "we shall overcome" speech.
So powerful. Goodwin highlights how he revealed those profoundly personal anecdotes in that speech. Like his cook, Zephyr Wright, having to go squat in the middle of the field to pee because of segregation. That deeply connected with the American people, linking the present struggle directly to the nation's core ideals. These weren't just legislative victories, Goodwin posits. They were moral transformations for the country, driven by a leader who fused personal experience, legislative genius, and moral conviction.
Wow. What an extraordinary journey we've taken through the lives of these four remarkable leaders, all meticulously examined in Doris Kearns Goodwin's leadership in turbulent times, from Lincoln's profound empathy forged in melancholy to TR's decisive action born from loss, FDR's unwavering optimism through paralysis, and LBJ's relentless vision fueled by early empathy and later urgency. Goodwin really illuminates that there's no common pattern to leadership. It's more a convergence of individual character forged in those personal crucibles, meeting the specific demands of a turbulent historical moment.
Indeed. These stories consistently emphasize the importance of resilience, a profound willingness to learn from setbacks, from failure, and, critically, the ability to connect deeply with and inspire people, especially during times of immense uncertainty. They powerfully demonstrate that challenges, however devastating, however personal, can paradoxically become these powerful crucibles for growth, enlarging a leader's capacity to serve, to shape history.
So, as we reflect on these deeply personal and public journeys described so vividly by Goodwin, considering how adversity and context shaped these, titans of leadership, what qualities do you think are most essential for leaders to possess in our turbulent times today?